Welcome home to Tall Poppies, the home of startups and upstarts, and talking about upstarts. This is part one of a two-part interview we did with Allan and Carol Meeson, who are the founders of Raptor Technologies. This is a really important interview for those who may be struggling as startups. They really show you how they made it happen. Hit subscribe and hit the notification bell next to that. And as we have any updates regarding the Meesons or Raptor Technologies, then we can let you know about it. We appreciate you watching this. You will just love this story. It truly is rags to riches. Today's episode, we're going to be introducing you to Carol and Allan Meeson from Texas, Houston, Texas. And they are the co-founders, the originating co-founders of Raptor Technologies. One of the interesting parts of their story is that Allan started Raptor when he was 50.
Correct.
As an older, but we don't consider it older, we're just hitting our prime entrepreneur. And so this is going to be a really great discussion on entering a marketplace as we get a little bit of experience under our belt. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely to have you here. So why did you start Raptor? And what was Raptor? Or what is Raptor?
Raptor is a visitor managing system that is used mainly in school districts all across the United States now, in all 50 states. I was working as a contractor at Enron. Some people have heard of that company before. And after 9/11, when the towers went down in New York, Enron asked us to build a visitor management system that would be web-based. So in case another catastrophe happened, the information would be kept at a different location. So then Enron imploded, literally, and I took the idea to a school district, figuring they have to check people in and out, know when the kids are coming, and the staff and everything else. And Chief of Police there, Alan Bragg, suggested that we add the sex offender database to it, because they have to track sex offenders at school districts. So we added the sex offender database. It took off hugely, and fortunately, we were able to sell the company a few years ago and parachute out. Yeah,
so what were you contracting at Enron? What was your specific, was it you were leading a team, or were you doing design work? What was
I had a partner, and we developed first for the mailroom when the UPS packages and FedEx would come, and we had the little symbol handheld. We wrote software for that so we could deliver the packages to different departments. And then they asked us if we could help them with their mailroom, and then they said, can you work the copy shop, so we could bill back to the different companies within Enron. And so when 9/11 happened, it was natural, I guess, for them to come to us and ask us to develop a visitor management system.
So so you developed the software and the hardware, or did you develop the software that was put onto their own hardware systems?
Well, basically it's software. It just had a scanner and a simple printer that went with it.
Yeah, yeah. So with regarding the database that you used for the sex offender, I know with Drilling Info, with Alan Gilmer, he was using, the Railroad Commission public access database, but it was just so difficult to navigate. Was it the same thing with the sex offender registry? Did you make it just more usable and add value that way?
We actually, the gentleman that was working with me at the time, figured a way to get around the Department of Public Safety in Texas to access their sex offender database. And people at the time said you can't do that, but a good programmer can figure out how to get around things.
Right. So hopefully the statute of limitations is passed.
Well, it wasn't illegal.
No, okay, great.
And then we added different states as we expanded.
Right. So that was part of your scalability.
Correct.
Right.
And at one point we met a person in California who was collecting the data from all 50 states. And I approached him, and he really liked the concept of us helping students, because normally he wouldn't sell to individuals like me. And he sold us the data to the school districts, which gave us
which is important
50.
because a lot of these offenders do cross, state borders.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so if they know that they can get, for a number of reasons.
And those are absconded most of the time, and our system would light them up. They'd go to a different state, and we have great cases of identifying them and the police going out and arresting them. And
how many cases do you know, or can you say that happened?
Well, Huge numbers.
I don't know. It was like we were flagging sex offenders every day coming into schools.
We actually put monitors up in the office. So, and I had one person dedicated. So each time they came in, it would, let's say Pennsylvania,
right,
and it would show the sex offender. We would call the school to make sure that that was the person in front of them at the time. And it would send an alert to law enforcement or school officials. And we had false positives. We had all the nightmares you can imagine going along the way to eliminate that. But it just grew and it grew and it grew out of necessity that the schools wanted it. And the parents wanted to know their children were safe when they were going to school.
So was there any pushback from any privacy groups about your products?
Yes.
and who were they?
Usually we'd have some crazy individuals call the office every now and then.
Carol had to take those calls.
Yeah, I got to take those calls. And there was one woman who sued her school district. And did that go to?
It went to the Fifth Circuit Court in New Orleans, and literally it could have put us out of business at that time. In fact, our competitors called wanting to contribute to our legal case, because if it put us out, it was going to put them out too. And luckily, the Fifth Circuit ruled for us in our favor.
Because it's public data, isn't it?
Right.
Yes.
They were being a nuisance.
Yeah,
right.
they were just. She just didn't want to show her driver's license. That's pretty much what it amounted to. And
it happened, we ended up on the front of the Drudge Report.
Oh.
And we paid money to keep that ad up on the front of Drudge at the time, and got lots of phone calls. Great business.
Brilliant,
great.
brilliant. So you're talking about your competitors called to help contribute. So were they competitors at the time you started, or did they sort of follow? So
they followed suit.
So you were the innovator. You were 0 to 1.
Absolutely.
it really took several years before any of them were screening for registered sex offenders. I mean, they were just checking visitors in and out of schools.
With
and doing some
alerts,
other, some other things like that. But we had an innovation that no one had. We were the first company in the country to do it, and for a long time we had no competition. We were killing everybody
we just kill them, RFPs.
Proposals.
And I'd go there and say,
First to market is huge.
It was huge at the time. It's still huge today. There's over 120,000 public schools, not counting the privates. So when we handed the company off, the people that came in and buy it, they looked at this, the young guys with all the money, and they're like, this thing has got a huge growth.
Yeah, but you had already captured a huge percentage.
We set the mark. We were the Xerox.
Right.
And for a mom and pop organization starting out of the house.
So you were saying that there's like over 20,000 schools now?
There's a,
Raptor's in right around 20,000.
So there's still room for lots of growth.
So are there other institutions that are interested in this?
Some.
There's other companies
Hospitals.
that do. Yes, hospitals to look at, corporate business, and when we sold, they were asking me, why don't you go after all these different markets? But I decided I'm not leaving my wingman. I'm going for this low-hanging fruit, and I'm going to ride this baby.
Yeah.
And I said, you want to buy the company? You want to go after corporate America? You go right ahead.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that it has an ability to expand into other areas like domestic violence when you've got restraining orders, and there is such a high incidence of fatalities regarding, the inability for, those offenders or potential offenders to gain access to, the objects, their targets. So did you ever go into that area as well, or was it ever discussed?
Well, actually, the system had a place they could put alerts in for people who had restraining orders or custody issues and that kind of thing. So the school already had that paperwork. When a parent brings it in and says, my husband's not allowed to pick up the children.
They could customize it.
They put in those alerts. And so our system did more than just check for sex offenders and check in the visitors. And it had a whole host of other things it did, like check in volunteers and track their hours, and
contractors,
students, and
faculty,
contractors, and so it did a lot of different things. But the part that really made it sell was the fact that we screened for sex offenders in schools.
That got us in the door, And then you go to the front of a school and you see notepads like you're holding lined up on a counter, and people are signing in different places, and I'm going, this is insane.
It is.
And then if there was a fire drill or a bomb scare, the lady at the front's required to pick up all those papers and run out front so they would know who's left in the school. Well, by the time we finished Raptor, a police officer could pull up out front, hit a button, and see what faculties had left, what students had gone on appointments, and to, some of the tragedies we've seen over time, to know actually who's left in that building.
Yes, it prevents a lot of heartache, potentially, if not knowing is part of that. Within 9 years, you exited. That's massive. So the trajectory would have been rather steep. So what was the access to capital like for you? Did you find, as starting it out as an over 50 entrepreneur, just hitting their stride, I think, did you find that it was a little bit more difficult, or it was no problem at all? Did you find ageism to be an issue with the capital guys?
We didn't go get capital from anybody.
So you did
we funded the whole
this
thing ourselves.
Yeah.
So you just kept on plowing the money back
Back into it.
Back in.
Yes. There were many Christmases with no Christmas gifts. There was a lot of, living
rice
pretty
and beans,
slim.
beans and rice.
We had our house
say.
on the market. We put a sign in the front yard at some point because we had no money. We had lots of debt, and this was the worst idea in the world to start a company. But the opportunity was it was there. It was obviously something people were interested in, so we had to go for it.
And I've been there. When you don't have an alternative, and you just have to make it work.
This was it.
That's what Allan always said. This is my last hurrah. I have got to make this work.
Yeah. And so, how would you sum up? Was it desperation, or?
I just knew it was right, and I knew it was going to happen. There was no chance we could fail. I mean, and we were in debt. I mean, serious debt. The old credit card changed to send the money to one another. Yeah. Carol kept looking at the 66 Mustang in the garage going, what's that worth? But so it's still up here now. But but it was very tough. But I've had other businesses. I had a photography business for years. I photographed in schools, did football teams, bands, and everything. Taught martial arts. There's no money in that. Carol's always had 2 or 3 jobs. She's an entrepreneur herself, so we were an excellent fit to launch a company like this.
So do you think that your marriage, your teamwork, I mean, could you have done it without?
I couldn't have done it without her.
No, we had to. In fact, we just knew each other so well. We had worked together before, so it just was something that we could do. Not everybody can do that. No. But we did.
Go to work, come home, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going, I need a PowerPoint. And she has to get out and make me a PowerPoint because I have it in my head, and I'll forget it when you get up in the morning. You know? Those were many nights.
Did you teach them PowerPoint?
No, I'm not good on a computer. I can run a company. Now with Apple, I can do
That's a skill set, so you knew how to do, how to delegate. Right. So, I'm thinking of Jordan Peterson. He talks about in his 12 Rules book about the cost of not moving forward, like the inaction. You've just got to, just moving ahead is going to, at least craft about change, even in the face of adversity. And I think he uses Abraham as a reference there. Like he leaves his dad's tent and he faces a famine and his kids die and, his wife, people want to take his wife and, he probably wanted to be back at his dad's tent. But the sacrifices that you made were so much worth it in the moving forward. Do you want, can you sort of expound upon that with other people who, even at our age, who maybe for the first time wanting to just bite the bullet, and it's scary to go out and create your own company, and it's not easy, and it's not overnight. So
it's more rewarding. That's for sure.
Is it worth it?
Well, obviously it was for us. I mean, we're living the dream, the American dream now. The excitement every day.
But you made the American dream happen.
Yes.
It wasn't handed to you on a plate.
No, ma'am.
And you had what I love about this country is you have the right to pursue happiness, but the right to pursue means that you have the responsibility to work and
I know
enjoy.
a lot of people who are hell-bent on being their own boss. That's what's in their forefront of their mind, is they just want to be their own boss, but they completely are oblivious to the amount of work and stress and headache and risk and all these things that running their own company is. It encompasses all of that. So a lot of them just don't succeed because they're not doing it for the right reason. Allan knew that this product was something important when it started, the ball started rolling, but when we started flagging sex offenders, I remember the very first time they flagged a sex offender, I said, oh my God, this is gonna be huge. Because of course, the guy that was the sex offender didn't have any business at the school. And anyway, Allan...
How did you feel when that happened?
Wow.
So many times they were dating a single parent, a single mother, and she had no idea that he was a convicted sex offender. And a lot of times they just kept wanting to go to the school after I talked to those ladies later, or they would call and thank us and whatever. And I said, we're staying with this. And it was very, very rewarding.
Allan actually created a market, but at the time, he probably didn't realize it. We knew there was a need for visitor registration and tracking visitors, but what he did really changed what all schools are now wanting in terms of their visitor management.
It's amazing to think how many lives you've saved.
We've changed a lot. I mean, and it's all been for the best. We've had our distractors. One of my favorite is a letter we got one day. I think it's from a guy up in Boston, and he was talking about how wonderful our package was. But he was incarcerated as a sex offender.
Yes.
And he says,
he wanted to know if he could invest in our company.
He wanted to invest in the company, and don't send me anything that's sharp or spiraled. So that picture of him and his letter was on the wall outside my office, because to have a sex offender a convicted one doing hard time want to invest in your company, you know you have a good deal.
Yeah.
Good idea. If the sex offender
he may have been an offender, but he wasn't fiscally stupid.
He was a businessman. Yeah.
God, that would have been a really unique.
It was good.
Yeah.
But to watch the product grow for many years, it was a lot of fun.
It was fun. Every day going to the office and with all the employees, and how lucky we were because so many of them treated the company like it was their own. And
really,
yeah,
and why do you think that they did that? Was it because
I spoiled them a lot.
Yeah, we spoiled them.
Spoiled the heck out of them.
But the vision. Do you think the vision they just grasped the vision?
Everybody loved being a part of that.
That startup is so much fun if it's successful and it goes.
And if it has a good vision, because that sometimes is the only thing that drags you through the mud pile.
And as I look at the young people coming up today, everybody gets out of college and they think it's just going to be a rocket ship to the top. And you got to go out and beat the weeds. You got to get beat up. You got to lose.
We had a lot of people who started for very little money at our company, and within a couple of years, we're handing out raises left and right and cash bonuses, and
we set up a defined benefit plan, which nobody hardly does anymore.
Right.
And they got a ton of money.
And we paid for their insurance, so we spoiled them a lot.
Which is actually very expensive as a business person.
Oh, absolutely.
To incur those costs, because it's, in reality, it's sometimes easier to use contractors. We
were paying all their insurance before all the insurance issues came up over the last few years, with the government getting involved. And that was one of my exit things when I started the government, start to get involved in healthcare and how it was going to affect a company like ours. Mm-hmm. We were under 50 employees, but people who had more than 50 employees were just going to get hammered.
Right.
And we was at the right time for the exit, and we shopped around.
And and this flies in the face of people thinking that conservatives are heartless, because we're not. All of us have,
No, we were really generous.
Yes. and we create jobs. So
yeah.
We created some spoiled brats too, and that was bad because then they just wanted. They just yeah, and
but it was fun to spoil everybody. It was. And we had a lot
great.
of fun. Everybody just loved, like I said, being a part of that whole thing. The energy of the whole thing. It was just constant successes. So of course everybody was excited.
But it's not easy with their growth because there's all these changes and these.
And it is. I tell you what, it was.
We actually started it out of my house, and Carol would come home. She was working for Tom James and work in the evening designing brochures, stuffing envelopes, and I was teaching the martial arts in the garage. I had like 8 or 10 students. I didn't want to go back to teaching, but they just come.
Right.
And then the UPS guy would come and he'd honk the horn. So we'd all take our obies off, go out, unload the labels and the printers, put them in the garage, go back and teach class, and then package things up and send them out.
So martial arts, you were in California at the time, just after Bruce Lee died, and the dojos were all vying for the Bruce Lee effect, which was probably a remarkable time for you. But, martial arts in itself probably taught you a lot about getting your ass kicked.
It did.
So, and aside from
by
that,
some very good fighters.
Very good
some
fighters.
of the best in the country.
So, what did martial arts, other than, picking yourself up, dusting yourself off and getting back into the game, what other qualities did martial arts teach you?
My father was a lot older when he had me, so having growing up with a parent that was over 40 or 45, they just didn't see the world, which the young people can say today when people say, I can't get this email to go, that kind of thing. So my martial art instructor was kind of like a surrogate father. He would teach me, you're going to lose. He made sure of that, but you're going to make you a better man.
So how you lose?
How you lose with your head up and get up the next day and go back in the ring,
So there wasn't any participation trophies then?
No. No.
And to respect your opponent, I'm sure.
And back then it was different than the commercialized martial arts today. It's sad, it's changed a lot,
And Bruce was, going back to Bruce was trying to, break that.
He was.
Mold,
he was.
Go back to the principles.
And some of these that, they sell the belt ranks nowadays, and it's all about the money. We had like 4 belts, white, yellow, green, brown, black, and that was it, Nowadays they got purple, turquoise, so they can charge money for all that. Oh. And to me, again, keep it simple. It's like in business. Keep it simple. Your white belt gets dirty, it looks a darker color, and eventually it becomes black.
He was mostly, wasn't he not? And then like business, could you survive in a street fight? And in business, it's like, can you?
Same thing,
yeah.
Good analogy. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, or
Kenny Rogers.
Right. Just the martial arts taught me so much. I could never give back what I got from it. That's why I taught for so many years. I tried to hand that off, and had some incredible students that were so good. I said, I'm out of bullets. You need to go.
So the student becomes the master, the teacher.
Yeah. And that's a great feeling.
Isn't that a beautiful feeling?
Absolutely.
So you sort of completed the circle where you were the surrogate father, probably, to some of these kids?
Correct.
So that would have been just marvelous, marvelous.
And some of my best friends still,
Oh, what a legacy to leave. And, I remember, Carol, we were talking about how, much like in the book on Hustle, which is a great book, by the way. And they talk about this oblique trajectory that a lot of us have. And at the time we think, we're in a dead-end job, it's shitty, where are we going? How can I get out of this spot? But as we get closer and closer to where we need to be, it just refines and it just resonates. And, and in tying in Steve Jobs' address to Stanford, in his famous commencement speech, where he talks about if you look backwards, you can connect the dots. Did you find any times or a time that you saw or other people saw when you're at Raptor that it all came together and it just made sense?
I had. There was one day my brother and his wife were in town, and she happened to be at the office. And while I was answering phones and taking care of bookkeeping and helping with tech support and all these things, she looked at me and she said, my God, Carol, every job you've ever had, you're using in this job, in this company. And when I look back, that was definitely true. I mean, I was a secretary for years. I went to art school and studied graphic design. I did sales. I've always been a geeky, techie person. So I literally did all of that in our business. And I even ended up being the bookkeeper, and I had done that for a small business at one time. So all these things, I ended up using it in our company. So it was just weird. I mean, because my life took all these very strange, bizarre turns, but that's your stepping stone.
Right.
And it allowed me to focus on sales and relationships and go forward.
Freed you up. Yeah.
And eventually we outsourced a lot of that stuff that she had to do because it was going to kill her.
Yeah. And also you couldn't afford her if you had to pay her. Thank you for watching the video. I know that you're excited in following these people. Hit like, hit subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you in your journey too.